Yes.
Okay, so hello everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our webinar. We're going to be speaking today on cannabis products derived from use in food and cosmetics. So this webinar is brought to you today by Penn&Tech Consulting and Aiton Global Research, and it's going to be following a panel discussion format today. So we're going to be asking questions and then discussing the current issues surrounding CBD for use in cosmetics and food in the EU and UK from a regulatory perspective, but we'll also be getting an insight into the challenges that are faced by industry. So I'm Hannah Lester, and I'm the Scientific Director here at Penn&Tech Consulting, and I'll be the moderator of today's discussions. And I'm very pleased to introduce you to Caris Smith from Aiton, who will be covering all the questions related to cosmetics. We also have Dr. Thierry Kern, who is from Penn&Tech, and he'll be answering all the questions from the novel food side. And we have very special guests, Taras, Viljas, and Thomas from Aurora Hemp, and they will be giving us the industry perspective. So, as you all know, Cannabidiol, or CBD, has received a lot of attention globally because of its various properties, to name a few: anti-inflammatory, anticonvulsant, anti-anxiety, and these pain-relieving properties. And as such, there are many companies that are keen to seize the opportunities to use it in animal feed, human food, food supplements, and cosmetics. However, as I'm sure you're all very well aware, the regulatory landscape of CBD is very, very complex, and its use in feed and food in the EU in particular is far from straightforward. So today we're going to cover all you need to know about the regulatory challenges associated with CBD in the EU and UK. So today's webinar is going to be interactive, and the audience can ask questions via the chat function in Zoho. And we'll attempt to answer as many questions as we can during the next 60 minutes. But if there's any questions that we don't manage to answer, then we will follow up with you all after the webinar. So first, let's briefly meet the panel. So please, can you all introduce yourselves and let the audience know a bit about yourselves and the experience you have with CBD. So ladies first, can we please start with Caris?
Hi. So thanks for the introduction, Hannah. Yes, I'm Caris. So I am the Regulatory Director at Aiton Global Research. So Aiton Global Research is a consumer research company, which means we focus on doing testing for perception claims. So not clinical studies or scientific studies, they're all about the consumer's perception of a product. So this is really good for things like CBD. I'll talk a lot about that later, about claims that you can make using perception studies with CBD. But because there is this kind of, as Hannah mentioned, kind of a bit of a landscape of what you can and can't say about CBD and things like that, we're not looking at the science about it, we're looking at the perception. So as the regulatory director, I'm obviously on top of all the regulations that have effects on testing and research, but also that our clients need to know about. So especially cosmetics, most of our testing is cosmetics because it's where you see the most advertising claims. So really my experience with CBD was when it sort of started coming into effect, like taking a real trend. A few years ago, obviously we had clients that had CBD products, CBD cosmetics, and we wanted to make sure we were aware of the regulatory landscape because obviously we're sending the products for people to test in their homes. We need to make sure that they're legal products so that we know, what kind of things they need to have gone through in terms of testing, what levels of CBD they can have, because we're global as well, making sure that they have the right level of CBD for each country. So it's very much self-taught from our side in terms of what we've learned about CBD, but I think we have an interesting perspective on that side in terms of making sure people can still make advertising claims about their products, even though they've got CBD in them.
Great, thank you very much, Caris. So over to Aurora. So please, can the three of you introduce yourselves, please? Taras, Viljas, and Thomas.
Okay, we will try. I'm Thomas Denisavicius. I'm representing Aurora Hemp Europe. I'm Deputy Director, and I'm in this business only half a year, but my responsibility is to put the CBD products correctly into the market. And experience is such, especially on novel foods, that as much I know, I understand that I know nothing. So I hope together we will get more knowledge about that. Colleague Vilus.
Good morning, nice to meet you. My name is Vilus. I'm Director of Sales in our organization. Myself, I joined this business 3 years ago, so my experience is at the moment around 3 years. As you know, Aurora Hemp Europe is operating not only in CBD space, but in hemp space. So basically, my main responsibility at the moment is worldwide sales of our food products, and as well, we are moving little by little to CBD space.
Great.
Hello, nice to meet you. I'm Tadas Brasdauskas. I'm a new product development manager at R&D department of Aurora Hemp Europe. I'm 5 years in hemp business. So my main task and knowledge is about food product quality and new product development. So
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And Thierry, if you could just introduce yourself, please.
Good afternoon. I'm Thierry Ken. I'm a pharmacist by training, and I'm a regulatory specialist at Penn&Tech. And basically, I've been involved in all the CBD applications since the novel food has been in force, and preparing them all for EU approval.
Great, thanks Thierry. Okay, thank you everybody. So shall we move on and get started? Okay, so the first question, and this is going to be aimed at Cannabis. Please could you give us a brief overview of the current CBD market, please?
Oh, sorry, I'm muted. Sure, yeah. So basically, as I think we're all aware, being part of this webinar, is that CBD has really taken off over the last sort of few years. And it's something that I thought was going to be a bit of a fad ingredient, just because of the novelty of it being, rated with cannabis. Everyone kind of had the same sort of opinion that it was going to sort of come and go quite quickly, but it hasn't, because there are benefits for CBD, and it's really starting to show. So just to kind of quote some market research about CBD. The market was valued at 4.6 billion in 2018, so it's pretty large. There's a compound annual growth rate predicted of 22.2% from 2019 to 2025. So definitely a huge growing industry. And something that I've been talking to my clients about in terms of cosmetics. Indeed, if you're interested in developing CBD products, it's probably a really good investment, because it is a growing market and it doesn't seem to be dropping at all. There's obviously issues in terms of the global growth, in terms of it not growing as quickly as everyone wants, because there's places like Asian countries and African countries where there is an absence of legalization programs. So there isn't any regulatory landscape and they're not looking at doing it. But again, that is changing. Europe is on a huge, so in particular, a real huge idea of growth, because Europe does seem to have a lot going on in terms of making regulations in place to make sure people can sell CBD products. So that I think they said there's a course to grow about 400% over the next 4 years in Europe alone. And certainly the UK as well. I know a lot of people I've talked to about developing CBD products have said that the UK does seem to be one of those favourable places to be looking at marketing your product, because there does seem to be some real speed in kind of picking up on the regulations and making sure people can start developing CBD products and selling them. And of course the USA as well, but we'll focus on Europe today. So yeah, I think the Brightfield group said that 46% of Europeans view CBD favourably. 77% of people surveyed also believe CBD should be accessible in some way. So it's a huge amount of population. If you think about any ingredient in any particular kind of product, that's a pretty huge amount of people that are interested in CBD in particular. So I think, it's definitely something that people should be investing in, should be looking at developing if they can. But of course, that means that they need to be really super aware of what the global regulations are, and especially when it comes to things like advertising standards and product development development and what you can have in your products. So yeah, definitely something to look at, but something to really be aware of what you need to do on a regulatory point of view.
Okay, great. Thank you, Caris. It's really interesting and good to hear that there's still a lot of growth predicted for this CBD industry. But do you think that the sort of recent global developments in the EU, particularly on the food side, will limit this growth? And also we have COVID, which is going on. I mean, have you seen any slowdown or, what do you think?
So in terms of COVID in particular, there was a bit of a slow because from what I've kind of read about it, people said that it's being recognised as an essential product. So people that, especially CBD oil, in terms of the usage of that, it's definitely seen as an essential product, but there was a huge drop off. And people think it's because even though you can obviously order online, CBD oil in particular is quite a bricks and mortar product. People used to going to shops to get it. So there seemed to be this huge drop off, particularly because of that. But the same as kind of lots of product categories at the moment, that drop off that was seen initially is picking back up now. So I'm sure Aurora will be able to sort of comment on that as well from their point of view. But I think it's kind of the same with any FMCG industry at the moment, is that there was a dip off because of the bricks and mortar situation. Now that's all kind of picking back up again. People are getting used to spending online. And yeah, so I think there's definitely, there were some challenges there, but I don't think that's going to have a huge effect now. And I can't remember the other part of your question.
Oh, sorry. No, it was about the regulatory developments in the EU with the sort of the European Commission now debating whether or not CBD will actually be allowed in food or not. Because I think that could possibly have a big implication.
Yeah, I mean, certainly. And I think, it's a global thing, as I was mentioning. It's not just about the EU. Globally, it's so up and down with regulatory changes as a industry. Anything to do with CBD, it just seems to be, you go 10 steps forward, 1 step back, that whole sort of situation. But I do think that there also, I think that a lot of people are interested in keeping the kind of growth going. A lot of people campaign for it. There's a lot of companies that are now hugely involved in CBD, huge CBD companies. And when you've got that kind of passion and money behind it as well, to be fair, I think it does mean that things will carry on going. So I do think, not to kind of like be put off by those sort of challenges that it faces. I think that things will continue growing. Certainly in the UK, as mentioned, I know that people say that it is certainly a country out of all of the EU that it seems to be really picking up on making sure that it's put into the market. So yeah, I wouldn't be put off by it at all. Kind of keep on going as we were. But obviously, again, that just means that there's even more reason to be really on top of what's going on. So if you are developing CBD products, always be looking at the news for them. Register to places like the CDPA are really good resources to register to their newsletter, because if there's anything, especially that's on the cosmetic side, there's going to be any changes about what the regulations are, they'll put out that news. So yes, I think, keep going, but be very aware.
Brilliant. Okay, thanks, Caris. So moving on, I'd like to ask Aurora, what are the main difficulties that your business has faced trying to find out the requirements needed for marketing CBD for use in food in the EU? So I don't know who from Aurora wants to answer that question, but it would be great if we could hear your perspective on that.
Okay, we just made a lottery. I will answer. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. So we have two basic difficulties today. Lack of long-term view from regulators and wild trade rules, especially in e-commerce. So talking about the requirements for the product, we have changes, I think, 3 years in a row, every year. So there was a description that natural CBD extracts from hemp leaves and flowers, where CBD levels are equal or lower than natural levels in plant, are not considered as novel food. An example, hemp flower tea or something similar. Second change followed, so all the products extracted from hemp flowers and leaves considered as a novel food. So, okay, industry adopted, and as far as I know, we have about 50 applications for novel food. And third change is on the way, and nobody knows what decision will be on September, October. So I hope regulators will consider all the facts provided, and we will not have this change from end of this year that CBD considered as drugs. And the interesting thing that synthetic CBD has novel food application validated, as far as I know, and this will be only for natural extracts. So from one point of view, in order to bring good quality product to the market, we need to follow the rules and we need to pass all the requirements. But despite the time and finances we are providing for that, in the market we have say that nothing from rules perspective. So some companies, they can sell an e-commerce CBD with very creative claims, and they do not need to prove it. But so this creates situation to the business, especially for the companies who works according to the standards, not the same competition. So our purpose is to provide customers with highest quality and good products, and provide the product what we claim on the tag, actually. So those two problems we are facing.
Okay, thank you, Thomas. Yeah, it really is a tough regulatory environment, and it's very, very difficult for companies to get their CBD products to market and follow the actual regulations and do things properly. So it seems that Aurora is a company that's doing things properly, but there are many, many other companies out there that are just selling these products. Well, it is illegally. You know, they're selling CBD online in shops illegally. And I guess, you know, your strategy is to differentiate yourself from these people that are selling it illegally, and you're doing it properly. Is that correct?
Yes, this is correct. And our ultimate goal is to provide the correct product, because again, if we will selling good product, consumers will come back. But an opposite, if we will have issues with consumers' health or safety, it can make influence for all the producers, not only for those who did some short business.
Okay. And, you know, if obviously the European Commission is now debating whether or not CBD is going to be classified as a drug rather than a novel food, how is that going to impact your business?
This will impact not only our business, it will impact, I think, whole industry, because we are very integrated from the farms till the consumer. We have a lot of investments done in all the value chain, starting harvesting equipment and finalizing with extracting and production equipment. And together with colleagues and with AIHA, we are working a lot to provide the facts, figures, in order to have the not political decision, but data-based decision.
Just to demonstrate the safety more than anything, I guess.
Yes, because again, AIHA, they made the consortium in order to make all the tests for the product to show that this product is safe. Okay, well, it's going to be an interesting couple of months, and hopefully we'll all get good news. Yes. Okay, so moving on, Thierry, could you please just remind us what are the requirements to market CBD in the EU for use in food?
Yes, sure, Anna. Well, the EU legislation is called the Novel Food Regulation, and it was put in force only 2 years ago, and basically is based on a date, the 15th of May 1997, and state that everything that had not been consumed in the EU before that date, or has been produced in a way that is different than it was back then the product is considered a novel food.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a tool that is available online, the EU Novel Food Catalog, and Aurora was alluding to it, that considers that cannabis sativa and CBD-derived products were not consumed before that day, therefore they should be considered novel food. And as you mentioned, there's been several changes, and now there's only products derived from hemp seeds in different ways, like seed oil, or defatted hemp, or flour that wouldn't be considered novel food. Mm-hmm. But as already mentioned, at the moment the EC is still accepting applications for CBD-derived products, pure synthetically produced, but they have put on hold every application that is from hemp-derived product, and they want to decide whether they consider them novel food or something else, for instance, pharmaceuticals. And of course, we don't know what their stance will be, whether they will maybe authorize the certain products with certain limits of cannabinoids, for instance. And we will know that hopefully they promised an answer by September, October.
Okay, and what about the UK?
Yes, so because the UK is exiting the EU, and this is planned by the end of the year, the EU and the UK are currently negotiating the future of their relationship, and they've that means that every application that will be concluded before the end of the year, then the UK will follow the EU decision, and after that, the UK asking that the application submitted to the UK FSA is separate. And what basically we don't know what will happen to these applications that will be still ongoing, and whether the UK FSA will accept still the decision of the EU later on, or if they want to do their own assessment. But what we also understand is, in terms of what kind of application, the UK FSA said they will accept CBD-derived applications, but with the caveat that they shouldn't, and no substance should fall within the scope of the UK Misuse of Drugs Act, therefore not contain any substance like THC.
Okay, brilliant. So what about all the CBD products that are currently on the market?
There are a lot of products that were already sold before even the novel food regulation came into force, and yes, several companies have already reacted and submitted an application to the European Commission to comply with this new regulation. But at a national level, first the UK FSA has asked that all companies that have a CBD products currently on the market submits an application, and this before March 2021, with the condition that this application is validated by then. And then these companies will be allowed to remain on the market until a decision is made by the UK FSA. And then in other countries, well, every country reacts differently. But for instance, we saw that the Dutch FSA was issuing fines for CBD products that were on the market, and they considered that were illegally sold.
Yes, because I believe each member state had to set in their own law a fine for for the sale of non-approved novel foods, and each member state has set their own fine. And I think it ranges from something like 400 euros in Latvia to 40,000 in Austria. And if you're selling your product, if you're selling if you're selling your CBD products in every member state, then you get a fine from every member state. So it can, it's additive. So it can be a very expensive procedure if you get fined in each member state. But sort of thinking about that a bit more, Aurora, what is your view of the companies selling illegal CBD products? Do you think the EU member states should be tougher or remain lenient? Should the EU be doing more to protect these companies that are doing things properly, especially, once the first novel food authorization has been granted for CBD?
So, as I told you before, our ultimate goal is to provide safe and good quality products to consumers. You cannot do this if you are cutting corners. And I can bring example one article I read last week about the US FDA report on the CBD products. They did the sampling, and only 23% of the products were labeled correctly, and more than 55%, about 55% had less CBD than was labeled, put on the label. Yeah. So our view is as much clarity we will have in regulation and controls, it will be a benefit not only for the industry, and it will be benefit for consumer himself. So this is our point.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. But do you think that the EU member states should be tougher on these companies that are selling illegal, sort of poorer quality products?
I think first step would be clear rules and just not to put the fine amount of money what they will ask for the legal sale, but execute those. Not only written procedures, but requesting to act correctly.
Okay.
We have procedures, but we lack control.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I mean, it's all there in the legislation, the novel food legislation, about fining for the EU member states to fine the companies that are selling illegal novel foods. But I don't see, many cases of the fines being issued or the member states following up. So I think maybe they're going to get tougher once the first novel food approval has been granted. If somebody gets the novel food approval for CBD and they have data protection, then maybe the EU member states will then be more tough. But we will have to wait and see.
Yes.
Okay, so let's move on to some questions that we've received from the audience. I think this one is for Thierry. So my company markets a hemp-based product and would like to confirm whether or not it's considered as a novel food. Is there any way I can contact the regulatory authorities to ensure that our interpretation is correct?
So yes, so the novel food catalog I mentioned can give you the answer. So if it states that cannabis, sativa derived products, CBD derived products are novel food, it's only hemp seed derived products that may not be novel food. So you might find your answer already then. But then if you are not sure, and it's especially the case when you use a manufacturing process and you are not sure if this was the one that was used before May 97, then you can go through an official consultation process. And what happens is you choose a member state, and this member state will work on behalf of the EU, issue an opinion, and then share it with all the member states, and the decision that they will take will be valid for the rest of the EU.
Right. Okay. Great. So moving on, I think another one for Thierry. What does a novel food dossier consist of?
So you have basically it's a set format set by the authorities, and it's basically an administrative part, a technical part, and in the technical parts you have three big parts. Basically, the quality part, where you show that your product has the adequate quality. You will obviously provide the composition, how you manufacture it, and then the specifications that you set, and showing the stability for the shelf life you want for your product. And then the safety section, where you will demonstrate that your product is safe, and you will also look at the allergenic potential. And then you will propose uses. So for instance, cookies, ice cream, capsules, beverages, and the dose at which the novel food will be included in these products, and then the recommended daily intake of the food. And this will then be part of the final authorization that you will obtain. And then in the administrative part, what is important is obviously to mention the information you want to keep confidential.
Okay. So with the novel food dossiers, it's for the CBD itself, and not, you don't have to register each formulation separately. So say you want it to be in beverages, cookies, gummies, it's all under one application, correct?
Application, and but also, yes, as long as the specifications are the same at the end, yes. Okay,
because I think there's often some confusion about that, and a lot of companies are being told that they need to register each final product instead of the CBD itself, and then the CBD in the different presentations or food matrices.
No, the only difference is in the stability data you provide. Yes, you will look at the stability in each final products, but this is part of the same application.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. So this is another question, again for Thierry. So if I am writing and submitting a novel food dossier, what should I watch out for? What are the pitfalls?
Yes, so obviously, what the European authorities give you a format and ask you to provide a dossier that is as complete as possible. In addition, they will follow during validation a checklist that is also available, so you can make sure you have provided all the information that the authorities want. Because of course, if you don't, you risk that your application will not pass validation. Now, if you want certain tips or things we have seen that often company may forget to do is first of all is to make sure you provide 5 batches and certificate analysis of these 5 batches, and this is mainly because EU wants to see the consistency in the manufacturing process. Then, of course, if you want to go with one application but you have different manufacturing processes, then you would want to meet the same final specifications. Otherwise, you would need to provide different dossiers. Then also, one thing that EFSA wants is that you don't only give the upper limit in the specifications, but also the limit of detection or limit of quantification. This is something they will systematically ask. Also, in the toxicological data, make sure you provide the GLP certification to show that your studies were done according to GLP. And finally, when you prepare your application, you will calculate the maximum daily intake from all the uses you propose. If you realize that it's above the margin of safety, then you should consider reducing all the dose in one or more products or reduce the number of uses. So you fall within this margin of safety.
Okay. And someone else has asked, can I register a product that contains more than 0.02% THC?
Yes, this is a confusion that you often see, because this is a number that is given in the novel food catalog, but it refers only to the plants that are grown in the EU. So this is a maximum amount that a plant will be allowed to contain, and among a selection of plants that are allowed to be grown in the EU. But it doesn't refer to the amount of THC that would be allowed in the novel food. So it's two different things basically. And the other thing is that it only refers to the plants grown in the EU. So there is no such limit set for plants grown outside the EU. I think it's probably to limit the quantity that is of THC that is in plants grown in the EU, to avoid maybe certain abuse.
Okay. And Caris, what about in cosmetics? Is there any limit on THC for cosmetics?
Yes, so there is, but it's kind of vague in the EU. So at the moment, they say that a finished cosmetic product must not contain more than 1 milligram of THC, and that's applicable to any container, irrespective of the size, and not about the specific concentration. So as I mentioned, it's not that much of a specific guidance, because it's just about, no matter what size the product is, it can't be more than 1 milligram. So it's really important to be aware again of the regulations that are involved. So for example, in the UK, there's 3 regulations that you've got to be aware of if you're using CBD as an ingredient in cosmetics. So obviously the EU, the European Commission Cosmetics Regulation. There's the Misuse of Drugs Act and the Misuse of Drug Regulations. So the reason I say to be aware of it is because it's quite vague at the moment. This could be very changeable, I think, because it's not, if you look at other cosmetics, it's not that kind of vague where you say, oh, it has to be 1 milligram, no matter what the size is. It's usually to have a percentage of the ingredient. Specifically, when you want to make claims that a product does contain an ingredient, you need to have at least that kind of level, whereas it's kind of the opposite way around. And yeah, I think it will probably change. So as I mentioned, those are the 3 regulations in the UK, but every country is going to have really similar regulations. So yeah, just keep an eye on them. And there's definitely information out there. That's from the CTPA again, as I said, they're a really helpful resource for the UK. So they really clearly state these are what you need to be aware of if you're making cosmetics, which have got CBD in them. And there's similar information out there for each country. It is quite easy to find. So yeah, definitely be aware. But at the moment, it's nice and vague for you.
Sorry, Caris, did you say the CDPA?
The CTPA, which is the Cosmetics, Toiletries and Perfumery Association. So they're, like I said, they're a UK company. So if you're looking at cosmetic CBD, please check them out, because they've got a lot of information on there. But even though they're UK based, because at the moment, we're still part of the EU, it's the same if you're in the EU or in your UK, it's the same regulations. So it's still really worth having a look on there if it's something you're interested in doing, is CBD and cosmetics.
Brilliant. Thank you. Okay, so moving on, I think, Thierry, you're being bombarded by questions for you. So you mentioned that novel food applications have been submitted to the EU. Has there been any cannabis-derived products registered as a novel food yet?
So no, and that refers to what we said earlier. So the EC only passes applications for CBD synthetically produced, and actually there are 4 applications that have been submitted, and if you could actually follow their progress on the EU Register of Question, it is available online. And among the 4, 3 have passed validation and therefore are assessed, and they are reviewed. There is only one that has been submitted back in 2018, and yet not passed validation because EFSA came back to them asking for more data that they haven't probably provided yet because the application is still on hold, stuck in at the validation stage.
Okay, so you can track the progress of all of these applications using the EFSA register of questions.
Yes, and you just type, for instance, Cannabidiol if this is what you are interested in. But of course, I looked for hemp or cannabis, and so far, as EC has mentioned, they only look at the CBD-derived ones.
Okay, great. So if I get my product approved as a novel food, will it be protected from competition? And if yes, how long? So I think that's another one for you, Thierry.
So yes, the approval is generic, and so the authorization holder, of course, will be allowed to market their product, but also others if they meet the restrictions set in the authorization. For instance, and it will be about the uses, the specifications, and the intake levels. And so if another manufacturer or business operator wants to sell the product and meet this what is set in the approval, they will be allowed. So that's why we always strongly recommend that companies make their specifications as tight as possible, so other companies find it much more difficult to piggyback on their authorization. Now there is another mechanism. It's a 5 years data protection that can be obtained if you submit proprietary data in your application. And there are just 3 conditions. Well, of course, you need to ask for it, and you make the request in the original application. The data that you submit must be essential to demonstrate the quality and the safety or the safety of your product. So, and then the data are owned by the company and not in the public domain. If you meet these conditions, then you would be granted a 5 years data protection, which means that only you, the authorization holder, can legally sell the product in the EU for these 5 years.
So, what kind of data? Sorry, there's an echo now. So what kind of data could be used for data protection? Would it be the GLP toxicology study, or could it be something else?
Yeah, definitely. The 90-day rat study is a good example because that's what is essential to show the safety and that your product has the adequate margin of safety. But I guess other studies that are part of the toxicological package could be used. I mean, a genotoxicity study could probably be used as well. So that you don't have any mutagenic potential.
Okay, so that's good, because obviously the toxicological studies are very, very expensive. So if the companies are investing in those studies, then it gives them at least the 5 years protection. Yeah.
Yes.
Aurora, or Taras, or somebody from Aurora, would one of you be able to comment on, is the data protection important for Aurora, and what would the benefits be to your company?
Yes, of course. In general, data protection is valuable. It may help to have stable product trading and prevent unfair actions and activities from the competitors.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's a shame that that it's only for 5 years because it is a huge investment. The toxicological studies. It's a shame it's just for 5 years. Obviously, it's more tricky because I know that there's different trade bodies or consortia that have got together that are going to be trying to apply for a novel food application for a generic CBD. Obviously, then a lot of other companies can then come under their umbrella, selling the generic CBD that's been authorized via a consortium or a big group, an industry body. How does that impact the industry, and how does that impact your business?
Actually, we are part of the one consortium together with us. So, as you told, toxicological studies are quite expensive. So we need, as an industry, we need to come together. But again, all the outcome should be at first available only for those who are paying money for that to get the money back. So this is very important to get the correct protection.
Okay, great. And Caris, is there any data protection for cosmetics?
So it's a bit different with cosmetics, again, because there isn't a separate application like novel foods for cosmetics. It's just a cosmetic, regardless whether it's got CBD in it or not. So in that sense, I guess you're more protected because there's not sort of a kind of application going out there. It just doesn't matter if it's CBD or not. The main thing to be aware of whenever it comes to manufacturing any cosmetic, regardless if it has CBD in it or not, is making sure it stays within the cosmetic category. So again, the European Commission gives really clear kind of guidelines into what is a cosmetic, what makes it cosmetic, and what makes it then possibly a medicine or a borderline. So that's what you don't want to do, is end up going into that kind of territory of medicine or borderline. You want to keep it a cosmetic. And therefore you won't have to do any kind of separate applications like that. The minute it becomes borderline or medicine, there is applications involved that are very tricky, especially for medicine. And this is why there's often this debate about claims for CBD products, because a lot of the claims that people want to make about CBD, about an anti-inflammatory, that's when it goes into the medicine territory, and it becomes a whole another ball game, and almost impossible to get a CBD product registered as a medicine unless it's going to go down the kind of prescription route. So in terms of that, it's not necessarily something you have to be concerned about in terms of data protection. Obviously, there's going to be data protection things in place anyway, but it's not as a higher risk because there's no kind of application as it is for a novel food. I think that's kind of it, really.
Okay, so for cosmetics, anybody could put CBD in their product, and it wouldn't be an issue as long as they meet the specifications or whatever's dictated by the regulations.
Exactly, yes. As long as it's still a cosmetic, as long as it's still a cosmetic and that's it, it doesn't really matter. And if there is anyone who sort of is new to that sort of situation, in the EU, you have a responsible person for every cosmetic. So they'll be in charge of saying if it's, the safety, the claims. So as long as you've got a responsible person, they'd be essentially the person that monitors, or, the company, it's not always just a person, that monitors, that it is a cosmetic, the claims match up to that, and all the testing and everything like that's in place. So again, if it is something that's new to you about going down the cosmetic route, whether it's CBD or not, be aware about a responsible person. There are companies that do it, and that'll be sort of the person that will be in charge of making sure it does fit into that category.
Okay, great. So another question for Thierry. How much do the regulatory authorities charge for a novel food application?
So there is no fee associated with the assessment per se. So the EFSA doesn't charge for the assessment, and the cost is essentially coming from the development, so generating the data that you will include in your application. Okay,
thank you. Here's a good one about claims. So can claims be made for CBD? If so, what about claims for cosmetics and how they can be used in CBD products? We faced the problem that some of our competitors use claims for the products distributed online, which appear to be illegal. But could you clarify this for us? So Thierry, if you could sort of discuss claims from the food perspective, that would be great to start with.
Yes, so it's two separate procedures. Sorry. So there is a registration process for a novel food and a registration process for a health claim. So they can be run in parallel, but so far there is no claim approved for CBD or cannabis sativa. And for hemp-derived products, there were claims that were submitted, 8 claims submitted years ago, and that are stuck in risk management assessment since 2016. So basically there is no claim approved for hemp or CBD or cannabis sativa derived products yet. Yet you could be you could make some general claims depending on the type of products you are going to market. For instance, if it contains other compounds such as vitamins or minerals, and you could make claims related to that, approved claims related to that. Or if the product doesn't contain any substance of animal origin, you could potentially say that it's of vegan origin, for instance, or suitable for vegan.
Okay, so just to clarify then, so the novel food application is just covering safety, and you can't make any claims. So if you have a novel food authorization, you can't make any claims. And if you want to make claims, then you have to submit a separate dossier for those particular claims. And
Yes.
to date, there are no authorized claims, so companies cannot make any claims on CBD itself at the moment.
Yeah, that's correct. And that's why you have these 8 claims that were submitted a long time ago, and there was no, it wasn't part of an application for novel food at the time either. Yes.
I guess it's very easy to stray into the territory of medicinal claims, particularly for CBD. So I think companies need to be very clear that the novel food authorization doesn't mean that you can make claims. Karis, what about cosmetics? What kind of claims for CBD can you make with cosmetics?
It's basically the same kind of thing. You can't make a CBD claim directly, but you can make claims about your products being a cosmetic and cosmetic claims. So I think that there's obviously this real people get stunted because you get told what you can't say about CBD products, and it's really, really common for me to see CBD products out there that just don't have any claims on them because of that. They've kind of said, we don't make any medicinal claims, we don't have to say any medical benefits about the CBD, so we're just not going to put any claims on our product, and we're not going to take the risk because it's cosmetic. The problem here is that you then end up with a contested market of products out there without claims, and the products that do have claims are going to stand out. They're the ones that people are going to buy. So I kind of want to encourage people to say, do make claims about your products, because otherwise, if people go to a shop, see 2 CBD moisturizers, cosmetics, which one are they going to choose? The one that has claim to say what it can do, and the one that doesn't have any claims about it. So make sure they're cosmetic claims. But obviously it's really important to be aware of that category. So there's different definitions about what category of product your product is globally. But in the EU, usually you're going to find it falls within food, cosmetic, borderline, or medicine. And obviously making sure that you understand what the cosmetic definition is, making sure that you go you abide by those rules as well. Because there's information about what kinds of claims you can make as well then if it's a cosmetic. So there's definitely ways. I mean, we've done it with cosmetic claims for CBD products. So obviously one of the kind of generic claims people say about CBD, which we're not allowed to say, is that it helps with things like anxiety. Now, a cosmetic claim you can make about any cosmetics, if you do it for things like aromatherapy sort of style products, would be this product makes me feel relaxed. You can say that about your CBD cosmetic because you're saying it's about the product, not the CBD. So there's certainly kind of I wouldn't say tricks because that's not fair. They're substantiated. We've got the data to say the product does do that, but it's switching a gear in your brain and kind of thinking, this isn't a CBD product I'm saying, I want to know what the benefits are of my cosmetic product. And it just so happens to be CBD related as well. There's also real marketing claims as well. So like I said, even if you knew there were claims you couldn't make about your product, you didn't want to make those medicinal claims, you didn't want to make those claims about the CBD, to make your product stand out, things like, what we do for consumer research, those subjective claims are things like, I would buy this product, I would recommend this product, this is the best moisturizer I've ever used, those kinds of claims. So that's the ones that are going to make your product stand out again, and it's really going to elevate your marketing. Get things like testimonials, photos and videos, everything like that. So like I said, it's very much kind of switching that thought of going, instead of going, oh, I can't really make claims about this, I'm not going to bother. It's thinking, what can I make about this product? What can I say? And how am I going to get that evidence to substantiate it?
Okay, so it sounds like there's some convenient loopholes there on the cosmetic side. So that's very good. If someone from Aurora could comment on whether sort of claims for CBD are important for you and your business, that would be great.
Yes, of course, claims are important in our business and in new product development, because claims help to educate the consumers about the CBD health benefits. And it's important to mention that regulated claims can help to avoid unfair trading, and claims promote sales when conveying the health benefits of the CBD products.
Okay, so are you obviously Thierry mentioned that you can't make claims on the CBD itself, but if you're combining the CBD with vitamin C, then you can make the claims on the vitamin C, for example. I mean, is that something that you're considering doing, or are you just going to sort of more focus on the quality side of your product?
Yes, of course, as you know, in Europe you can find the list of all regulated claims for food products. So we're also thinking about these nutritional claims as vitamin C. When you add this product in your CBD product.
So, but everything according to the rules. If we can put the claim, this is on the list, we will put. If no, so for today, we are waiting until those will be registered.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much. So I think we've got another one on cosmetics now. So what are the global advertising standards and law, examples of self-regulatory organizations and federal organizations that regulate them, and who actually regulates the advertising for cosmetics?
That's fine. So basically we're talking about claims and what you can say about a product, but what happens when it goes on the market? Who actually looks at those claims and sees if they're allowed to be said about the CBD product. So basically almost every country has a form of ad self-regulation. So you have self-regulatory organizations which regulate the adverts in their own countries. Basically what they're looking for is to make sure that all advertisements are legal, decent, honest and truthful. So that's kind of the 4 words to always have in your mind when you're making claims for your products. So basically they deal on a complaints basis. So if it's either your consumers or your competitors, they'll see your product on the market, see the claims about it, and they could complain about those. So it's really important, again, to make sure you know what claims you're sort of saying about your products and that you've got some kind of evidence behind them. As long as you've got evidence behind your claims, they'll fall into that whole framework of legal, decent, honest, and truthful. So once someone complains about your product, the advertising self-regulatory organization will approach you and ask for your evidence about those products. And if you don't have that evidence in place, that they'll either have to correct your advert or you have to have it removed from the industry. So that's pretty much a global standard. There are some countries that have federal organizations, for example, the USA, the UAE. But in terms of Europe, it's all self-regulatory. So there's 3 parts. It's the advertisers who pay for the advertising agency is responsible for its form and content, and the media that carry it. So if you fall into any of those 3 parts of the industry, you really need to be aware of what the SROs are, or self-regulatory organisations in that country. To be like people to be aware of, so to have a look at if it's kind of a new sort of way of thinking for you. You've got the International Chamber of Commerce, who have a framework that's adopted by about 52 countries. So that's a really good first place to look to see who's got their framework in place, because they'll have a really similar code of conduct. You've got ICAS, which is the International Council for Advertising Self-Regulation. Again, now that was set up by the European Advertising Standards Association. I'm going to keep throwing all these names out at you. So the EASA are Europe. So obviously we're talking about being about aware of European regulations. So certainly look at the EASA and their code of conduct. But they also set up ICAS, which is the International Council. And it's just a really good place to look, because obviously it's set up with European standards. Other countries have come and become a part of that council, and they always have news updates on different parts of advertising. So they obviously did an update with COVID and advertising during COVID. So I'm just kind of putting kind of organisations out there for you, because if it's something you haven't really looked at before, you need to start being really aware of who is regulating adverts. And what they're doing, and what their code of conducts are. Because as long as you're abiding by those, you're always going to be fine. And the main thing again is just to make sure you have evidence behind your claims, no matter what, because they're the people that will call upon that evidence. And if you don't have it, it can be really expensive to have a product recall and have all of your adverts removed if the claims on them are not substantiated at all.
And the damage to your reputation as well, I guess.
Absolutely, and particularly the EU, the EASA, and the ASA in the UK, they publish all of the cases that have been upheld. So you really don't want to have that bad press. It's a great place to look as well. If it's something quite new to you, you're not really sure about what's been put in before, you can go on like the ASA website. So that's the Advertising Standards Authority in the UK, and they have all of the cases published on there at all times, whether they've been upheld, so they've had their adverts removed, or if they haven't. That what you can do is go on their cases and type in CBD, and you can see all of the cases that have had complaints about them and what's happened, which is really good to see, because if you think you have some kind of evidence behind your claim, you're not really sure, you might find that there's a company that had the evidence that you've got, and they could have been told they're fine, that's the right evidence, or they could have been told it's not. So I always look on there if there's any kind of new claims that we haven't done before, or any new products we haven't sort of tested before. And they also have the CAP, which is the copy advice team for the ASA. So if there's any claims you want to make and you're not sure if you've got the right evidence behind them, you can ask them straight up. It's 24-hour return, I think, for a free email to put out there as an inquiry. And again, like I said, it's something we always do, especially when we first tested CBD. And we were kind of asked about making these claims, just gave them an email and said, is this fine? Are we allowed to use our evidence to substantiate these claims? And they came back and said, yeah, it's fine. So there's always, I think that's what I'm saying, is there's always advice out there. They're not to scare you. It's not like these advertising standards exist and you need to abide by them or you're in loads of trouble. They're also there to help you, and they provide information all the time and guidance. So it's actually to see them more as a friend rather than a foe. It's only if obviously you're not looking at their code of conduct and just saying what you want anyway, then they could be a foe rather than a friend.
Brilliant. Okay, thanks, Keris. And where can you use the claims? Can you use them on the packaging, online, social media? Where can you actually make these claims?
So anywhere, basically, as long as your claims are substantiated, you can use them anywhere. So yeah, pack copy, your website, social media, magazines, TV, shopping channels. That's what we do. If people come to us for advertising claims, it's not necessarily for one route, for one kind of form of advertising. It's to make sure that they can use their claims wherever they need to. It's just making sure that you have a substantial body of evidence, basically. So we can advise with that. So as I said, we do the subjective claims about the product, what do the consumers perceive? But there may be times that we say, actually, there needs to be some scientific evidence behind this as well, to make sure you've got that really good body of evidence behind your claims. So we've got partners that do those kinds of testing as well, and we can make sure that we're giving you all the evidence that you need. But it's just making sure that the minute you put those claims out into the public eye, that's when they're going to be under scrutiny from those advertising authorities. So you always need to make sure you have that evidence before you put them out there, and not retrospectively.
Okay, so do you have an example a CBD product that has been substantiated, and then one that doesn't have claim substantiation?
Yeah, so I can tell you examples of claims we put out there. Obviously, we're quite private with the companies we work with, and who's actually got products out there. But kind of examples of claims that we have substantiated with CBD in them for products. We've done things like facial oils. So, this facial oil leaves skin looking healthier and feeling calmer after use. Again, like I said, it's that really clever way of using those terms that we really associate with CBD, but they're cosmetic claims, so things like healthier and calmer. In terms of cosmetic claim, again, you can have percentage agree claims. So 94% agree that this product prevents skin dryness. So another claim we substantiated for a CBD moisturizer. And we also have done sort of more medicinal products as well. So like I said, you might find that your product falls within that group. The products that we've done medicinal CBD have actually been in the USA, so obviously slightly different regulations there. But we did a natural kind of herbal remedy for PMS symptoms, premenstrual cramps and things like that. So we said like helps to relieve PMS symptoms. But again, be really cautious if you're going to go down that route, and make sure we're still abiding by the categories of the product. Examples of adverts which have been removed from the market due to lack of evidence. So again, like I said, I had a look on the ASA website to have a look and see what's been put out there. And really interestingly, they tend to be 0 to 100. So there's one product out there which was from the Easy Life group, and they had a brochure for their product, and they just had lots and lots and lots of claims that were all kind of falling under the medicinal territory. So things about forget about your pain and apply the CBD miracle pain patch. It relieves chronic pain, anxiety, depression, insomnia, diabetes, poor memory, heart problems, high blood sugar, and much more. I mean, they just went crazy with the claims. And I think this is definitely one of those companies that probably didn't look at the regulations that are out there and the legislation about advertising. They thought, they calling it miracle pain patch as well. Now, there are really strict rules on saying miracle on products anyway, if you don't know that, because obviously a miracle is supposed to be it's something that's caused by a greater power like God or something like that. So you kind of want to avoid that word anyway in your advertising. There's just crazy amounts of claims on that, and obviously it was upheld for the medicinal claims. And I think they put on there that they just didn't have any evidence whatsoever. It wasn't even the claims that they had obviously weren't allowed for a cosmetic product, but then they didn't have any evidence to substantiate them anyway. It was just a little bit of a crazy one, that. So that's obviously an extreme example, but it shows what you can have out there, and to be really aware of it. You can also have a look on the things like the FDA website, ASA website. The FDA has been really interesting because they are basically putting out warning letters left, right, and centre, because they're finding that products have got no CBD actually in them. So, and we had over here as well. I think this undercover watchdogs going in and finding out that there's actually no CBD in the oils that are being sold. It's a really damaging thing to the industry, because there is that. I don't know if any other people have experienced it, but I certainly have. Where there's a real mistrust in the CBD industry, and it's not about the products not causing effect. It's because you have people out there that are putting products out there which don't even have CBD in them. So I'm hoping that kind of, it is obviously being cracked down on, like I said, with these undercover watchdogs, but I hope that continues to go, because it means that it's going to be difficult for people to have a trust in their products and get the legislation kickstarted to make sure that it can be put into small products if there's such a mistrust from the consumers, from the public. Tangenting off a bit there. But yeah, certainly, I guess it's just my kind of PSA to say, if you're going to develop the CBD industry, make sure you're being honest and truthful and going with all of those words that surround advertising standards, because it's not just about your consumers, it's about your competitors as well. We need to be a fair industry so that it can grow.
Okay, great, thank you. It's the same with food and animal feed products, that you have to have substantiation of your claims, and anyone wanting to make claims for their CBD products really need to be very, very careful and to comply with the nutrition and health claim regulation. Okay, so we have another question for Thierry. So someone's asked if they can make changes to the novel food authorization after approval.
Okay, so you can, but you don't always need to submit the data. There are 4 instances where you need to do so. So if you, and it's basically when it impacts the terms or restrictions that are set in the authorization. So what will be written in your authorization. So if you change the conditions of use, for instance, you would like to market your product in another form, you were approved in cookies, for instance, and now you want to include CBD in beverages, then you will need to submit the data. If there is an impact on the specification, for instance, you want to loosen the limits on the purity, for instance, or if you there is an impact on the labeling requirements, you may be restricted, for instance, in pregnant or lactating women, and you have data now to show that you can lift this restriction, so you will need a submission for that, so it can be assessed by the authorities. And sometimes there are post-marketing requirements set in the authorization. It's rarely the case, but when it is, if you want to show that they've been completed, then you need to submit the data. And it will be basically assessed as an initial application. However, because there are less data submitted, it should be shorter. The assessment should be shorter.
Okay, great. Thank you, Thierry. So I think we're starting to run out of time. I think we've got a little bit of time for some final questions. So somebody's saying that they heard that the UK FSA will only accept dossiers from companies already selling products in the UK before February 2020. Thierry, is this correct? And are there any ways around it for companies that were not selling their products in the UK before this cutoff point?
Well, I rechecked the UK FSA webpage, and all they say that companies that have a CBD product on the CBD market should submit an application by March 2021 and have it validated by then. And only those will be allowed to remain on the market, but it doesn't put another restriction as this date of February 2020. But eventually, what is certain is that you will need your product to be approved to remain on the market. So you need to submit an application.
So, what does this validated dossier mean? Do you have any information from the FSA on what that means?
Well, you need to submit, and then submit a dossier that is complete enough, so it's validated in time by end of March 2021. So in the EU, the authorities ask you actually to fill a checklist as part of the applications to show you have provided all the requested documents and adequately covered the quality and safety of the dossier. So you definitely need to make sure. Of course, the UK FSA may follow other rules, but they haven't specified anything. So far, I would recommend you follow how it was done for the EU and make sure you provide all the elements and check it with this checklist. So it's validated the first time around.
Okay, and maybe one for Aurora. Do you think that the UK will become the CBD hotspot? And if so, do you think the UK market will be big enough to support all of these companies that want to sell CBD?
Yes, so hello once again. I will try to answer this question. So definitely yes, in my opinion. Like Thomas mentioned, currently there are a lot of products on the market which are in so-called gray zone. It means that they are mislabeled, we do not meet specification and etc. with novel foods regulations and restrictions in place, market where you are legally able to sell CBD products shrink significantly. So due to these reasons, all producers will try to find space, let's say, under the sun in much smaller UK market, which naturally means harsh competition. So I believe only quality producers, which meets all safety requirements, will find space to operate in UK, and some companies will definitely be out of the business, in my opinion.
Okay, and from Aurora's perspective, what do you think the EC is going to conclude in September, October? Do you think that they're going to give CBD the green light for use in novel food, or do you think they're going to be tricky and say that it's a pharmaceutical? I mean, what's your gut feeling about it?
Maybe we wish.
It's a political question. So we are able just to guess. So we are hoping for the best, I guess.
Yeah, so best for the industry and for the consumers, and we think that all the data, because now what we are doing, we are initiating discussions, we are providing data in order to keep on floating, because this is a huge business connected, and within those few years when regulation was okay, novel foods, or it's illegal, a lot of things industry already did, and yeah. I think that this will be not political, but as I told on the beginning, it will be based on data.
Okay, so obviously there's the European Industrial Hemp Association and others that are collecting all this data, but do you think that industry as a whole will sort of come together and push the EC and do some strong lobbying? I mean, obviously time's running out now, so do you think there'll be a big push from industry?
What we can do, we politely told that we're providing data. So in different areas, I think different discussions are. And again, industry itself alone, we will do our best. But again, I think all the regions must come together with industry, politicians, and so on. Because what is needed not political decision, but decision based on evidences, on the data. Okay, I will keep it telling, and on the sorry for my English, normal thinking.
Reasonable.
Reasonable, yes. A reasonable, pragmatic approach. That's all we can hope for.
Yeah. So now we are waiting and doing what we can do for the moment, and we will see, because we have different markets. They are behaving differently. UK.
Okay. Yeah. Absolutely. And Thierry, what do you think the likelihood is from a regulatory perspective that the EC will conclude that hemp-derived products are not novel?
No, I agree that really it could go either way, and we don't know what the sense of the authorities will be. But I would think that at the end of the day, if you can show the product is safe with the adequate margin of safety, then you should obtain an approval.
Yes, well, let's hope. I mean, we should find out soon, but let's hope it's a favourable decision for everybody. So, sort of talking on that, someone said, if I can prove that my hemp-derived product comes from hemp stems and seeds and contains 0% THC, will that be approved? So not a synthetic, but a hemp-derived that they can apparently show contains no THC.
So it's complicated, and then there is the EU and then there is the UK. But so the novel food catalog, so the EC currently says that if it's hemp seeds, So you are not novel food, and then you will not even need to seek an approval. But otherwise, at the moment, also you can submit an application in the EU. The EU Commission has put those products on hold until they come up. They decide how they will handle them in the future. Then, if the EC confirms that it can be considered a novel food, then what you will need to establish in all cases is that it is safe and with adequate toxicological studies, for instance, a 90-day rat study. Now, for the UK, the UK has said that they will accept CBD-derived applications, but then they shouldn't contain any substance of concern. So if you say that it doesn't contain THC and also the other ones that would be on this UK Misuse of Drugs Act, so in principle, yes, you should get an approval as long, again, as you demonstrate that it has the adequate margin of safety.
Okay, and is there a safe dose for CBD already established? Do we know what the safe dose for CBD is for use in food?
So the UK FSA said that they would consider 70 milligram a day. It's no such dose for the EU authorities. They ask you to establish it with the safety data again that you are going to generate in your applications, and then now we have several CBD applications that are ongoing and currently being assessed. And then when they finish this assessment, we will know which dose they consider safe.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I think we're almost there now and fastly running out of time. So if everyone could, each of you could just add your final thoughts sort of as a concluding remark, and just give the audience some take-home messages that they should be thinking about. So Thierry, could you sort of give us a summary, conclusion and a roundup, please?
Actually, I wanted to add another point, is that by the end of March 2021, the new regulation on transparency will enter into force. And with this new regulation, all the studies conducted with a novel food, and regardless of the outcome, will need to be notified and will then be publicly available, which is not currently the case. So, the application will not be validated if the studies have not been notified properly. So I think this is something important for companies to consider, and to avoid risking being pushed out, but also legally challenged either by regulatory authorities, but also by the companies. We will have by then legally their products legally registered. And well, so far there is no CBD product or hemp-derived or cannabis-derived product approved. So the opportunity is still there to be the first.
Okay, so it sounds like there's two big dates coming up in March: the EU transparency regulation and the UK FSA deadline for a validated dossier. So there's a lot going on in March 2021 next year. Okay, Caris, is there anything you'd like to add? Any concluding remarks, take-home messages?
Sure. So I think from my side, especially looking at CBD and cosmetics, it's almost to start thinking of CBD as other ingredients that have benefits, and stop thinking of it as this ingredient that people obviously believe in because they put it in their cosmetics. But if we really have that belief in that ingredient and we really want to start treating it as an ingredient that should be used in cosmetics, is to start making claims about our products. It's the same for any ingredient, whether it's CBD or not. You shouldn't rely on the claims about the ingredient itself. You should always get the final product tested and believe that the product that you're selling is going to have those benefits and those effects, and you're going to have evidence behind those claims to prove it. So yeah, definitely want to encourage testing for claims, make sure we have claims out there. because the more people that are doing it, the more people will have evidence, and the more we can prove that CBD does have an effect, especially with the use in cosmetics. And it also just means that we're really encouraging the industry to be honest. Like I said, if you really believe in the product, then you wouldn't have any issue getting it tested and getting that evidence behind your claims. And as long as we can prove that in the industry and prove that to consumers and start getting the products out there, I think there should be a shift in sort of attitude behaviour and a change of thinking towards CBD products.
Okay, great. Thanks, Karis. Thomas, Vilius and Taras, have you got any final remarks you'd like to make?
So we would just like to add, that we are totally agree with our colleagues who are speaking today with us. We believe in CBD products as well, and we are happy that the industry is moving to more regulatory environment with more strict regulations, and we believe that this is the future, to have safe and available product for everyone in the market.
Brilliant. Anybody else from Aurora?
No, Vilius, he told everything.
I sum up our...
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. Thank you to our panel for today's discussion. It's very, very interesting. And thank you also to the audience for joining us today. As I'm sure you've all heard and you're all well aware, that the CBD regulatory framework is very fast moving and ever evolving, and we'll all be waiting with bated breath for the EC's decision on hemp-derived products, and whether or not they're novel or pharmaceutical. We're also waiting for updates from the UK FSA on what a validated dossier means, what the novel food structure will look like, what their expectations are for toxicological data. So yes, watch this space. So I hope that you found the discussions interesting and helpful. And if you have any further questions, please feel free to contact Penn&Tech or Aiton, and we'll be happy to help. Okay, thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay.